to Cyber-Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today we are talking about Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This is my personal favorite of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as I've stated repeatedly. Came out in 2014. Today we have, in addition to me, I got Bob here, Heather, and Matthew. And, well, I don't know what else to say at the very beginning other than how much I love this movie. I could gush over it for the next 2 hours, but I'm not going to. Watched it again. I took some notes. So I'm ready to start. Anyone have anything that they want to say to open this up?
Yeah, I think this is definitively the best Captain America movie. I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite out of the MCU. I go back and forth with this one a lot on if it's number 2 or number 3. For me, I probably, I don't know, I interchange it with Iron Man 1 up there for me personally. This movie's really great. I think it still holds up really, really well. It's almost uncomfortable to watch in light of recent events. Now, yeah, I won't go into too much detail about that, but just the whole, would the government actually do that? Yeah, they'd actually probably do this. So it hits a little closer to home now on the rewatch, and that doesn't, disparage the quality of the movie. I still think it holds up really, really well. It's entertaining. I'd probably call this the MCU's Dark Knight, where even though it's about a superhero, it's just a really good spy thriller espionage movie. I don't know. That's where I stand with it.
Yeah. One thing that I feel is that it's one of the fastest paced Marvel movies in all of them. I think the only one that maybe is faster is Infinity War. Because, Infinity War starts with an action scene, and there are very few slow scenes in it. It's just action scene after action scene after, 3.5 hours of nothing but action. It leaves you exhausted, but it's still such a phenomenal movie that I have nothing bad to say about it. This movie is the same. There's a couple of quiet spots, but they're usually very short and to the point. And then there's another action scene.
I think that's the Russo brothers style. They were the directors of this one, which I guess I didn't really realize until I was doing a little bit of research. But it makes sense because it feels pretty similar to Civil War, which is also pretty much
also the Russos.
Yeah, 2 hours of straight action. So, Heather, what are your thoughts on this movie, initial watch versus rewatch?
I think like you, watching it now in light of current events, it hit a few nerves there, which I thought was interesting. But just high-paced action. I think I liked how there were so many different directions in this movie compared to previous ones. It wasn't like there's one bad guy and the whole movie's about getting the one bad guy. So there was a lot of different movements in this movie, and that I think made it different and exciting in that sense.
Yeah, I think that up until this point, this was definitely a different feeling movie. Again, the first thing I thought of when I saw it was this is more of a spy movie. It's like a political thriller, more than with some Captain America thrown into it.
Yeah, well,
definitely a different feel, which I feel like, not to necessarily jump ahead, but another Marvel, I thought Brave New World, it was like they were trying to recreate that, and it just isn't. It just didn't obviously make it. But I think there was a lot of different depth here. But this was definitely, I think, arguably a political thriller that happened to feature a superhero.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for. I think that's even what they said they were going for before it was released. This was like the Manchurian Candidate. This was a throwback to the old 70s espionage movies. And that's part of why we talked about this in an earlier movie, how in phase 2, they started bringing in a lot of actors from other movies, like especially famous actors from the 80s and 90s who had they weren't really starring in as many movies anymore. And they brought them back. And this one did a big thing with Robert Redford, who was huge in the 70s and those old espionage.
Who was also in the Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that was a big nod to the whole thing. And I loved it. I never really was into those old 70s movies because I was too young at the time to appreciate them. I like them more now, but I haven't seen all of them. But this movie was edge of my seat. Loved all of it.
Yeah, with the exception of Infinity War and Endgame, which are like epic. I mean, this was arguably, still to this day, one of the best Marvel movies. Again, outside of the team up, of Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
Just a very well put together, definitely a more serious tone. Again, complete shift in kind of the pacing and stuff like that. One of the things I wanted to talk about was that I had here was, Steve Rogers. I thought it was an interesting thing is, we always talk about his morality, and he's always like we talked about it in Avengers, where it's like, there's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that, right? And it's like, there was kind of a corniness to it, but now it seems like his idealism and trying to stick to doing what's right rather than being corny and kind of like the values that he has and that type of thing. It seems like it pays off and makes more sense in this movie. I don't know if you guys kind of got that vibe.
As a character, I'll hold my opinions on how the MCU portrayed Captain America until we talk about Civil War. But as a character in this movie, I felt like Captain America's morality was a little hypocritical, actually. He complained that the helicarriers weren't actually freedom, which we know that they're not, but at the same time, he was essentially a helicarrier of his day, if you think about it, just because he ended up being pure of heart and good. I don't know. I just felt, hypocritical to me that he would be like, well, why the helicarriers aren't providing freedom? It's fear. It's like, well, people were afraid of Captain America and the serum, and nobody questioned, should the serum be utilized in mass production? I don't know. That's just how I feel.
I always thought they were going to use the serum in mass production, except that Erskine was killed.
Right.
Well, and I think I think that Erskine was the one who did ask that question, in terms of, he was very specific about who he, chose to be that person, that, he was looking for that person with a good heart. So it was almost like the helicarriers but with a conscience.
Right.
And I think that being that distinction, like, okay, there's this power, but then there's a conscience behind it. But then there's, in this new take on it, there's this power that does not have that same kind of human thought component behind it.
Also, Captain America never punished before the crime.
Right. No, that's fair. But it's also like, he was a dangerous experiment. The helicarriers are a dangerous experiment. It just happened to work out for Captain America. I just found it that the irony was lost on him in this movie. Like, what do you mean this is fear? I keep coming back to that line that's at the start of the movie.
I love that line. I love that line. And I've used it a number of times. Yeah. I've used that line a number of times when talking to people who, I'm not going to talk about it, but I've said it a few times because I think that people are operating on fear now. And
sure.
It's not freedom, and what they're doing now. And that's about as political as I want to get.
Right.
Partisan politics, real world politics. But that's why I didn't mind, Captain America was, he was a weapon just like the helicarriers, but he was pointed at the Nazis and he still didn't go after them before they were trying to take over the world. He went after them because they were trying to take over the world, or I should say Hydra, not the Nazis.
Right.
Yeah.
But we knew what you meant.
Yeah. But this was, the whole point of it was that they were going to Hydra was going to wipe off their enemies, a few million at a time, under the guise of these people were going to be criminals. They weren't criminals yet. They hadn't done anything. It was just looking at SAT scores and looking at their behaviors and looking at the things.
An algorithm?
Do. Yeah, it was an algorithm. So
it was ChatGPT.
Yeah. It's like Facebook deciding, this person's a threat, let's eliminate him now.
But that wasn't fully explained until the last third of the movie. Like, Captain America judged it off of his initial reaction, which is fair. Yeah. But go ahead.
I suppose. Well, they explained it when one of my favorite things about the movie is Jasper Sitwell explaining it to them, and he's the one he name drops a few people, including Stephen Strange, and he's saying like these are people who the algorithm identifies and is going to wipe them off the map, a few million at a time, even though they haven't done anything.
Right.
So
it just felt
that's some Minority Report level stuff right there.
Yeah.
I just felt like his morality was definitely grayed, and it makes sense because the world is gray. It's not black and white. And up until this point, we've only seen Steve be black or white. And so now he's faced with a gray moral area. And he himself, I think, became a gray moral character in this film for me watching it. So
it was definitely a transition from, Steve Rogers of the past to Steve Rogers now. Okay, the past is done, and now he's in the present time and has to, have opinions about the world as it is now. So I did appreciate that growth of his character in that sense. Like, I think the prior focus on Steve Rogers was about how he, was from a different time. Well, now he is of this time and has to come to those conclusions as well.
Yeah. Or at least he's transitioning.
He's trying to. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
Little nod to that. I love that notebook. Just want to mention that.
Oh, the notebook.
The notebook. I love that notebook. And I don't know.
I'll add it to the list.
I assume you've seen that in other countries, they had a modified notebook for things that were popular in other countries.
I've heard about that, Dan.
Yeah, I don't remember all of them. I know that the British one, it included Doctor Who, which is not in the English version. The version says Star Wars, like movies he needs to see, and there was Star Wars, Star Trek. There was, I think, the Rocky movies. I don't remember.
Rocky was on there, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but I think that in a list in Britain, it had Doctor Who. I don't know. I haven't seen all of the localities and how many they've done. I know that there was a different notebook shown based on where it was aired or where it was playing.
I do think that opening scene though, with the notebook and the whole jogging, I think that's just an excellent opening scene.
On your left.
On your left, one of the most memorable in the MCU, I think. And
I use that all the time too. Whenever I'm walking it,
Josh, you need to come up with your own material. You need to come up with your own material.
I'm not that clever. For those of you who don't know, I go to Disney a lot, and whenever I'm passing anyone on their left side, I'll be like, "On your left."
But you only get to say it once to the same person.
Yeah, that's true. But then I'll turn around and I'll be like, I've always wanted to say that.
And you hope that they get it and that you're not just a big nerd.
A lot.
And you hope it's a hot chick or something like that. Probably. So the Winter Soldier, the Bucky Barnes reveal, right? Because that's the big thing here, because that's a driving force for Steve. I mean, they set that relationship up in the first Captain America, how they were best friends and Bucky was always there for him. And I thought it was done really well, how they, and I'm talking about just the reveal and like, oh, it's Bucky, before we get into like backstory and how he was brought back and all that other stuff. I thought that it was really, really good.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, there are some really ingenious things they do before the reveal that help it along. Obviously they talk about it a little bit in the earlier parts of the movie, what happened with Bucky. And of course he goes to the Smithsonian so they can show you a close-up picture of Bucky Barnes. For the audience members that maybe, unlike us, who I assume before we watched the movie, we had just watched the first Captain America again, or in my case, all of the MCU. I do that before every movie releases. But for the normal person who maybe saw Captain America 3 years earlier, maybe didn't remember what Bucky Barnes looked like, or maybe forgot about the character completely. So now they give you a close-up of his face at the Smithsonian so that when you see him later on, you'll be like, oh, that's Bucky. He's back. For the comic book fans, there was no surprise. Everyone knew who the Winter Soldier was, but anyone who doesn't read the comics, it might have been a big shock. So it was a good way to remind the audience of who Bucky was.
Yeah, I liked the
Yeah.
way they did that. It wasn't just a normal flashback. It was, I thought that was very interesting, him kind of taking that brief tour of history to show us non-comic book people a little more foreshadowing of stuff. Also to know that was the first time I heard the term howling commandos.
Yeah, they never referred to them.
They
like
never
that
referred to it in the original movie.
in the first movie.
In the first Captain America. So, that was helpful for viewers like me.
Well, I think it also establishes, again, like we've talked about before, it's like recapping a little bit by doing that. But I think it also does, like with the jogging scene, and he was making his notes of what, taking advice from people on what he should watch and listen to and read and all that other stuff. I think it does, by going through there, it's not just a recap scene, no pun intended, recap, huh? But it's also, I think it also does a good job of just letting you know where Captain America is right now. It's like he's running missions for S.H.I.E.L.D. He's just, he's doing his thing.
Yeah,
and that
it's a good way.
But he's still like missing. He's like, it's like the past, the loss that he's had and everything else. And it's just kind of like, this is kind of where he's at right now, kind of status quo. And he's running missions and trying to fight what he thinks is fighting the good fight.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the Avengers, he was in our time, but he was still resisting it. He was spending all of his time at the gym punching bags, and
right.
And Nick Fury was trying to get him out into the world. Now, at the beginning of this movie, he's come out of his shell. He's trying to get into the world, as he's making his list and checking it twice.
Don't say it.
I knew it was coming.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, the Smithsonian scene there, and also the scene with Peggy Carter, I think, did that. Like it showed his, he is in the process of moving into the present.
Yeah.
But that scene kind of was very heartbreaking too.
Of
Which
course.
Peggy. Oh, seeing Peggy on the screen. Yeah. But I mean,
not seeing her on the screen, but when you visit her current day in.
She's talking to him, and then she has a coughing fit, and he gets her a glass of water, and she stops, and you see recognition, and she's forgotten the whole conversation they've had because she's obviously got Alzheimer's or some other type of dementia. She doesn't even know that he was there.
Yeah.
I do find it odd, though, with as much makeup prowess that Hollywood has, they chose to CGI her face to make her look old. I don't know. It looked funky.
I didn't get that.
I didn't think it looked too bad.
Yeah, I thought she looked.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. The mouth on
if you've ever seen an elderly person who is not that healthy, it comes off as a little bit.
It was just jarring.
This is Hollywood. Hollywood. Yeah. But I mean,
but they also had
that
to make
aside,
sure they also had to make sure she was recognizable.
Right.
Sometimes when an old person gets to a certain point, they cease to look like they did when they were young. I knew someone, I visited someone that I had known for 20 years on their deathbed, and they didn't look anything like what they used to look like. They were almost unrecognizable. I didn't get to talk to them. He was in a fetal position and sleeping, and that's all he did for like 20 hours a day before he died. But my father-in-law, former father-in-law.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It's just the CGI, watching it was just a little, I don't remember it being that poorly CGI the first time I watched it. So,
evolution of Hollywood technology.
It was good. Right? It was good closure scenes though. I like the museum scene, and I like that they continued to use the museum throughout the movie. It wasn't just there in the beginning when, obviously I'm jumping ahead a little bit, when he goes back and gets the costume at the end. I like that it was used more than once. So
with our really cool Stanley cameo.
Yep.
Exactly.
I'm so fired.
Yep. But anyway, back to Bucky. and the Winter Soldier, his whole story. Yeah, his intro scene and just kind of the whole brainwashing component. I mean, just kind of, the whole thing with Bucky. I mean, it's not it's not character development per se, because it's a whole new character based off.
But it's
his
such
past.
it was such a great intro too, because we excuse me, at that point we had seen they did this a couple of times in this movie, but specifically with Bucky, there was that scene in the Smithsonian, which to an average viewer, it's a throwaway scene to remind people of what happened in the first movie. Ostensibly, They wouldn't think anything of it. So there's Bucky. And then a few scenes later, the Nick Fury SUV fight, which is one of my favorite fight scenes in the whole movie, which ends with our first look at the Winter Soldier. It was such a great intro because you have no idea, if you weren't a comic book viewer, you had no idea who this is. And he's just standing in the street, and they have that theme, which, by the way, I want to give props to Henry Jackman. That theme is so cool. The Winter Soldier's theme. All he did was digitized his own voice screaming and then processed it a few times, and it's so distinctive.
Yeah, I like the theme a lot. It's very menacing. I didn't realize that it was just somebody screaming, but I think it's it evokes fear when you hear it. You're like, oh, that's the bad guy. And I liked the intro scene where he attacks Nick Fury a lot. It shows that Nick Fury can hold his own. And I think this movie shows more than any other that we've seen up until this point that S.H.I.E.L.D. is an actual unit. It's not in disarray. Like you see it in Avengers and their whole base gets destroyed. You see them in Iron Man 1 and it sounds like they're barely getting started. And it's like in this movie, they're fully functioning and fully operational, and
well, they have a base and they have an underground hangar and all that other stuff.
It was just nice to see, and it was nice to see Nick Fury not just delegating, but he's actually, he's kicking ass in this movie. I mean, he gets his ass kicked too, but at the same time, he's like that scene in the middle of the street with all the cops shooting at him, and then Bucky obviously hunts him
cops, but
that car chase scene was awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It was awesome.
It was so good. But also, people who watch the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would know, because that show had been on for about 3/4 of the first season at this point. I loved that show right from the beginning, but a lot of people didn't because they thought it was just another police procedural, because it kind of starts off that way. If you've seen Law and Order, you saw the first few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The only difference is that S.H.I.E.L.D. took place in the world with the Avengers. But when this movie came out, the events tied very closely tied with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the whole TV show changed from that point. But to anyone who was watching that show, they knew that S.H.I.E.L.D. was this much bigger thing than what we saw in the movies. But this caught people up really quickly, and it was our first look at the Triskelion, which was great.
Yeah, and I think that brings something up, is the whole Hydra twist with S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, that was a super huge twist of that they were, that Hydra had basically taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't think obviously it was that way in the beginning.
And enemy within.
Yeah, exactly. So, but for this movie and what they ended up doing and using that in the future, I think that completely worked. I don't know how you guys feel about that. The whole what Hydra's,
that blew me away. That was great. I loved. That's part of why I love this movie, is they take characters and even the organization S.H.I.E.L.D., which we've always known to be the good guys, and suddenly we find out half of them aren't good guys, including characters that we had seen a number of times already, including Jasper Sitwell.
Right.
He'd been in a number of movies. He was always a good guy, and now all of a sudden we realize he's Hydra. They also brought back Gary Chandler to play Senator Stearns from Iron Man 2, and he's Hydra, which is obviously why he was trying to get the Iron Man suit in that movie.
Yeah. It was
brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a plot point, I guess, is where I was thinking, is it's not just like, oh, that's really interesting. I mean, it actually changed even previous movies, like you talked about, that had S.H.I.E.L.D. in it. It made you second guess and made you kind of think about it. Like, what were they doing with that? And was it always bad? And when did that happen? And all that other stuff. I thought that was I thought it did a lot. I don't know, Matthew, how you feel about it, or Heather?
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess just
go ahead, Heather.
I was gonna say, like, just right now, I guess thinking about more, I'm like, it had to be a Captain America movie where they revealed that. Like, it's him fighting Hydra in the present day when he was the one fighting Hydra in the original introduction of Hydra. And
Right.
I find that very interesting. And it's making me think right now, like, I wonder if somehow underneath it all, that was some of his suspicion about what Shield was doing, and, like, what right versus wrong, and some of that hesitation to be fully, fully engaged as as a Shield agent. He was doing what he was asked to do, but he still had doubts if they were doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if somehow that plays into it, that like, his doubt was justified in this sense. Like, they weren't 100% good guys. There might have been good guys in there, but they had been infiltrated by Hydra apparently all this time. Apparently.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why one of the things I said before about how much I enjoyed the way they introduced elements, sometimes very subtly. Another one, that opening scene on the Lemurian star, Lemurian star.
Yeah, the cargo ship.
The boat.
The big boat.
Obviously it's a good intro to see how well Cap fights, but they also are showing the strike team and how good they are. And the audience doesn't even realize at this point the strike team are going to be his main adversaries at the end of the movie. One of the main adversaries, along with Winter Soldier. So this sets up how skilled they are as well. It's brilliant that they did that. Because at the time they were good guys, and then after they switch, that now they are a credible threat. They weren't being picked off by the bad guys, and there's no threat there. Now we know they're skilled at what they do, and now they're against Cap.
Yeah.
I think the Hydra inside of Shield, again, another thing that hits a little closer to home on a rewatch in 2026, but again, won't go too deep into politics there, is throughout the movie, once that plot point is revealed and Nick Fury is quote unquote killed, at least you assume he is until he's not, is you don't know who to trust besides Captain America, because you're seeing the movie through his eyes. Like, and then when he goes back to retrieve the USB stick with all the information, even Black Widow, you're kind of suspicious of her because she's always been a little bit elusive, and you're like, well, what side is she playing? And she's been postured as a good guy this entire time, good character, even in this movie with their playful banter on the cargo ship.
And it's almost like once Nick Fury says, "Don't trust anyone."
Yeah,
like that we are all like, "Oh, we can't trust anyone either."
Yeah.
As people watching this movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
Reset everything. Wait a second.
We've seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We know what happens when you say "Don't trust anyone."
Yeah. I think that. Oh, go ahead, Matthew. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it was good for the viewer narratively. Narrative structure wise, it was just a good posturing of like only Captain America is trustworthy up until proven otherwise. So I really like that throughout this movie. And then I think the Zola scene is probably my favorite to watch in the film. Every time I rewatch this movie, I'm like, I love watching the Zola scene.
It is excellent.
The way he explains it, and it's archaic tech, but he's speaking from a conscious mind inside a computer. I don't know. I think it's great. And
it's Zola GPT.
Yeah, you could feel the fear building up inside Cap and Black Widow in that scene too.
Well, that's where a lot of the twist is his scene alone. It's like, explaining Hydra and explaining everything, but that's when you get the whole master plan, quote unquote, of what's going on with everything. Not necessarily with Bucky. I mean, we see that scene later with Pierce going in there and, they're reconditioning Bucky to keep his mind wiped. So, but I think that, yeah, that Zola scene really, that's the one where you're just like, where he's explaining everything. And he's doing it in that way where he's like, with his accent and everything. It's kind of like, let me tell you my evil plan.
Yeah,
But what's so ingenious about that is it was also a nod to the comics. I don't know if you are all familiar with the comics, but Arnim Zola is a character in the comics who puts himself into a robot body. And a lot of it is actually kind of similar to how it showed up in the movie. There's the red light for the eye, and his face appears in a monitor kind of in the abdomen of the area of the robot. I can send you a picture of it, but it's, that was their nod. They did a lot of that. They did that also with Batroc. He's a kind of a minor character, so we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about Batroc. But if you'd ever seen him in the comics, his super villain costume, they brought it into this movie. They made it a little bit darker, a little more subdued. It's purple with a yellow stripe going down the front, which is exactly what it is in the movie. The only thing they changed of major significance is that in the comics, he's this really suave, charming guy with a really big handlebar mustache. And they got rid of the flamboyant mustache. But other than that, they kept him sort of a realistic view of him while still having a nod to his appearance in the comics.
Speaking of other characters, and we're talking about Zola. Right?
Hold on, I had one.
Go ahead.
I had one more fun fact for the audience in case they were curious. While I was watching it, it was late at night. This movie rewatching. I thought it was interesting that they focused on the keypad when they're going down to see Zola in the computer room, the 8539. I did a little bit of digging. There's a couple of reasons why that code is the way it is. Turns out the first Marvel comic ever released in August of 1939. The other fun fact I found was 8539 loosely translates to the Hebrew word Tama. I hope I'm saying that right. And that loosely translates to the word Marvel in English. So I just thought that was fun fact.
Wow.
That is cool. You apparently did
Super
go on a
deep.
deep dive.
Yeah, that is a deep dive.
Yeah, that puts me to shame.
Yeah, you've been ousted, Josh. So, I wanted to talk about both, Natasha Romanoff, Scarlett Johansson's character in this movie, as well as the introduction of Falcon. I thought kind of Falcon, I thought that his introduction was kind of a Bucky Barnes-ish replacement sort of type of thing.
I think he was supposed to. And Anthony Mackie does a great job.
Yeah, he does a great job as Falcon. But I think that the big one here is, and she really does kind of come out as a co-lead, is Natasha Romanoff is Black Widow in this one. I mean, she does a great job of, like you said, kind of like, is she trustworthy? Is she not trustworthy? That type of thing. But I mean, they, really go on this thing, and it's funny because when you think about it, this political world that this movie kind of lives in, because it is more of a spy-ish type of thing. It's more her bag than anything else, because that's her whole backstory is being a spy in essence.
Right.
This could have almost been a Black Widow movie. Almost.
Yeah. Do you feel like this movie did more for her instead of her solo movie in terms of her character development and who she was and how she is?
More, maybe not. But it definitely worked as a good intro to her character.
It was a good intro, but it was still a Captain America movie.
Yeah. I just mean it could have been, because it was more of her than we'd ever seen. Like, we didn't see as much of her in either of her two previous movies. She was a minor character in Iron Man 2, and she was one of many in the Avengers, and they didn't focus
it
on
definitely
her as much.
advanced her character's development, for sure.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say the Black Widow movie is essentially Captain America, the Winter Soldier, but Black Widow's retelling. I mean, if you go watch it, it's almost the same film. Almost.
There's some similarities.
Yeah.
Not quality, but it's almost a movie. Almost same storyline.
Also, I do like that Scarlett Johansson has really good chemistry with Chris Evans. I didn't feel like they were a romantic couple, and we're not supposed to, but their banter and the way they it really sells their friendship. And that's
I think
why it hit me.
my favorite line about that is in the beginning of the movie, like, anybody know the way of the Smithsonian? I'm here to pick up a fossil. I thought that was
Right.
awesome. That was like the best.
Yeah, and he's like, that's hilarious.
Well, and then Anthony Mackie, I thought it was just so overt. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, wow, man.
Yeah,
That's
shooting his
like-
shot.
dude. He went all the way on that one to try and she just kind of looks at him and she's just like, "Whatever, dude."
Oh, she smiled. But I that's part of why going forward to another movie in Captain America Civil War, when Black Widow shows up at the funeral, at Peggy's funeral, to talk to Cap, and they're already in the midst of the whole conflict, but and they're on opposing sides at that point, but she puts all that aside and says she wants to be there for him because they're friends, and that was all set up by this. So I loved it. I will also say, and this is just a minor thing, but this is my favorite of Black Widow's hairdos.
Yeah.
No, I think
Even though-
the Iron Man, her Iron Man, or was it Iron Man 2?
Iron
Her
Man.
Iron
Man
Man
2.
2. Yeah, sorry, I forgot when it was Iron Man 2.
That was also really, really
her curly red hair at the end.
Yeah, but I've always had a thing for the straight hair. The only thing is, and Heather, you can probably attest to this, I've seen the movie with a number of friends who are women, and they always laugh at the scene at Falcon's house after she takes a shower and she's drying her hair and it's already straight. And you can see it's a little bit wavy, and everyone laughed because they're like, so they're on the run, but she had time to straighten her hair. I don't know much about hairstyling.
Movie,
so I really don't know.
Movie
but
magic.
apparently- Yeah.
Yeah, I is not something that I picked up on. So I guess, different.
Oh, a number of people, including my daughter, they laughed at it. They were like, I want to know how her hair gets that straight right after the shower when you can see very clearly that it's wavy. But I don't know anything about hair styling, so I don't know how long it takes to straighten hair.
Yeah, as we're talking about it, though, I was thinking back on Black Widow, and I'm just running through thoughts in my head, and it's like, I mean, she really does kind of lead Steve Rogers. She kind of, it's almost like he kind of not defers, but he looks to her because it is the world that she lives in, and he's more of like, I mean, he's thinking it too. It's not just like I'm going to go in and punch stuff. But the intrigue, she dealt with intrigue a lot more. I don't know. I think they did, like you said, or I don't know if it's Josh or Matthew said, it was just like they did a really good job of playing off of each other and building up that, how the two of them interacted and worked together to kind of solve the whole thing and where it was. But I think she really, I think it's one of those like Black Widow really kind of. I mean, she didn't really steal the movie per se, but she definitely was a
Her
lot.
skill set was needed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like Steve Rogers needed her skill set in this sense, that spy aspect of it, and the politics and that were going on. I think that was a useful pairing between the two.
Right. Right.
I do think it's interesting, though, that Hawkeye is completely absent in this movie. I know we're talking about Black Widow and Falcon, but if Hawkeye was such a tight-knit partner for Black Widow, I just find it odd that he's not anywhere in this movie. No mentioning of him either. So, at least that I can remember. I like Falcon. I think this is his best appearance that we see in the MCU, maybe with the exception of Civil War, but I feel like he does the most in this movie. I feel like his character feels the strongest in this movie, and he's not fully aware of everything that's going on, but he is the most beneficial to the team.
Well, yeah, he's the loyal, military buddy.
But I also like the scenes that, and it ties into Steve's military background, is that he's working at the VA and Steve goes to pick him up at the VA or talk to him at the VA. And I just like those.
They're able to relate.
Yeah, adds that grounded nature to both characters and makes Falcon more relatable. And I like Anthony Mackie in this movie. I feel like as the movies went on, Falcon became kind of more of a slapsticky buddy cop type of humor character. But in this one, he's more serious. That's just me.
Well, definitely one of the people that I feel like we definitely need to talk about is Pierce, and part of that is because it's Robert freaking Redford, who, like I said before, he was in a whole bunch of these movies that this movie was an homage to. I'm trying to remember all of them. I keep thinking of The Manchurian Candidate, but there was also
there was 3 Days of the Condor,
3 Days of the Condor, All the President's Men, Person of Interest.
Once Upon a Time in the West. Did we say that one?
That's not really an espionage.
No, but it's a Robert Redford movie.
No, it isn't. Robert Redford isn't in once.
Way to go, millennial.
You're thinking of
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda.
Yeah. No, but yeah,
Robert Redford.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say it's like, obviously that was the genre or the time, almost even the time period of like, hey, let's go look at these bunch of movies that were made during this time and then craft a movie. I mean, that very much, because we kind of said at the beginning, very much matured the movie. And Robert Redford, I remember when they announced him, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like Robert Redford in a Marvel movie, like you just can't really see it. But then you see the movie and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like right at home in this movie and it works perfectly. And that's one of the things that I love about Marvel and this movie in particular. They took a guy who arguably was most famous for these 70s espionage movies and put him in a modern espionage movie.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank you all for listening. We will be back next week to continue this discussion. In the meantime, if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, remember to make tomorrow better than yesterday.